It's the proclamation news and Gavin. It's the peasant, it's the prodigious, it's the Professor Johnson at PNG. At PNG, ladies and gents, thank you all for tuning in. I didn't expect yours to come straight in already. Thank you all for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm going to do a bit of a motivational speech. It's a capital P in proclamation. It's a capital P in professor. It's a capital P in prodigious. It's a capital P in persuasive. It's a capital P in persuasion. It's a capital P in progressive. It's a capital P in progression. It's a capital P in propaganda. Capital P in PNG. Thank you all for listening, guys. I just want to give you some advice, business advice. Business advice. You're in a relationship. You're in a relationship, which is a situationship. Talking about amicable relationship or a situationship right now. You're taking punches for someone that ain't clearly taking punches for you. You are the breadwinner of the relationship. You're the breadwinner of the house, but your partner is either spending all your wages on narcotics or days out with their friends, going out to the cafe. You're trying to pay your bills, you're trying to pay for Christmas, and they're spending all your hard earnings. Your hard earnings. You're trying to work on progression. You need, build a bank balance. You want to build a legacy of your bank balance to say, yeah, I've worked hard. I've worked hard. I want to build something out of this money, this business that I've been working, trying to build myself. And you got your partner who wants holidays, wants to go get her makeup done, her nails did, get a tan on, or vice versa. Shoes on the other foot. It's from a woman's perspective, because I'm not a sexist. I like to think of feminism as well. The lady's going out to work while the man sits at home doing sweet FA. Sweet FA. He's sitting at home drinking beer with his friends, having his mates over, watching the boxing, watching the football in front of the box, while the lady's doing all the graft. She, I don't know, she might be a grafter in a hair salon, cutting people's hair, and the guy's not appreciating it. That relationship, my friends, needs to be annihilated. You got to think of you got to think of your children, your family, because at Christmas time, it's all about traditions, isn't it? With your family, it's all about having Christmas with your mother, your father, your kids, and that person's been spending all your money, all your hard earnings. You're not gonna have much for Christmas. This Christmas, we're having a bit of a public austerity. This Christmas, we're going to have a bit of public austerity because of coronavirus. People being furloughed off work, left, right, and centre. I hope you guys on YouTube can hear me. Guys on Castbox, Podbean. I'm also Proclamation News on YouTube as well. Proclamation News and Gatherance on Castbox and Podbean. If you're in your car and you'd like to listen to me going along, because it's analog, it's an analog system. You can have it playing through your um, radio in your car if you've got Bluetooth on your phone to your car. Anyway, we're going to look at the cabinet reshuffle. Real understanding of Dominic Cummings resigning. There's going to be a cabinet reshuffle because Dominic Cummings is resigning. Firstly, I'd like to give you an update. This is sponsored by O2 because O2 provide a network, are the best network coverage. They've got full network coverage throughout the UK. They've got 4G as well, which is, the most amicable internet service. Works really quick, swiftly. Um, all the latest devices out, same as all most networks. I don't think as most. I think Tesco's got their own network. I'm not sure if they got all the devices. Quite possibly now. They didn't have to start with, but they're building as well. But like I say, O2 network is the best network providers. Absolutely. You get free trips away. I'm not quite sure at the moment because lockdown, but as we come out of lockdown and be doing the free trips away for, you get them voucher trips, things like spa days, dinner for two. You get put in a prize draw as you get your new device. And also, if you get an iPad, you don't have to, as well as your mobile phone, you don't have to take out for full term contract. You pay the upfront cost of the device, and you're allowed to cancel it because you've got a mobile phone device or whatever, whatever. If you know what I'm saying. Yesterday I was talking about if you want to vote, it's important to vote. They're coming up for election as well. We've got the next election coming up. It's important to vote. Put your vote in. Getting on an electoral roll as well, showing that you're self-maintained. You're away from getting involved in government shows that you're a responsible adult as well. It's worth getting involved, voting for your local constituency MP. Who you want in place of your next MP in your local constituency, I believe. I haven't looked into it yet. I'm going to make my vote after the show. But I'm a conservative, ladies and gents, bona fide conservatism. I'm genuine, I'm traditional. A bit like, I look like a 1960s farmer, but, but I am very traditional. My granddad was conservative. He fought in World War II under Winston Churchill. I was born in postmodernism era of Margaret Thatcher. Anyway, moving on in today's democracy of the UK politics. Cabinet reshuffle, ladies and gents. The cabinet reshuffle. Becoming absolute populism on Castbox, Podbean, and YouTube. We're getting more and more supporters daily. People are actually coming in supporting the show. People sharing it because I put so much hard work in every day. Cabinet reshuffle. Who is in Boris Johnson's new cabinet? Who is in Boris Johnson's new cabinet? Prime Minister Boris Johnson has carried out a reshuffle of ministers in the cabinet positions 2 months after winning the general election. There was speculation ahead of the reshuffle about how diverse the new cabinet would be, particularly considering women and people from ethnic minority backgrounds. Who's in what job? Here's a guide to the people that make up Mr. Johnson's cabinet with the latest new faces and who's changed places. Obviously, we've got blue background indicates full cabinet members and grey background indicates attending members. So obviously Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak is the Chancellor, Priti Patel is Home Secretary, Dominic Raab is the Foreign Secretary, Michael Gove, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary. I'll tell you the ones I really like. Liz Truss. Why do I like Liz Truss, ladies and gents? International Trade Secretary, Women and Equalities. Liz Truss. Liz Truss also sorts out the new the nourishing for the kids throughout schools education. She does a lot in she does a lot throughout conservative government. Absolutely tremendous. If you heard her in Parliament when she speaks, like you want to hear that when you're a teacher, not when you're a teacher, when you're a child, you hear that elegant voice read you a story time at the end of a school. She's got that. She's got that absolute euphoria about her, her sense, her etiquette sense, the way she talks. Really stands out amongst the rest of the party. Matt Hancock, Health and Social Care Secretary. Matt Hancock. Gavin Williamson, Education Secretary. Matt Williamson. So if you've got, it's good to know who your party people are and what they do, because if you want to email that constituency, education secretary, worry about your kids' education. Worry about your kids' education because the lockdown, kids not going to school or your school's been shut down. You want to get through to Gavin Williamson to get him to put your story across the Parliament. If it's worth them, tackling, but give you ideas. Oliver Dowding, Culture Secretary. Alok Sharma, Business Secretary. Robert Jenrick, Housing, Communities and Local Government. Looking at housing and communities, what do you think housing and communities could, we're looking at housing communities, sociological change, like you want to go into the, what's it called, housing to gate, what's it called, gateway to housing choice or home way to gateway, sorry. That's the sort of person you get in touch with if you got problems in your constituency, like sociological change of people that have come from the Metropolitan Lunatic Asylum. Teresa Kofi, work and pensions. Teresa Kofi, work and pensions. Maybe you got a question about DWP. Robert Buckland, Justice Secretary. Anne Marie Trevelyan, International Development Secretary. Grant Shapps, Transport Secretary. What could you get involved with Grant Shapps? Congestion at Trafalgar Square, perhaps at a train station. It is absolutely shocking actually to be quite fair. And Victoria Street, another one. George Eustace, Environment Secretary. Brandon Lewis, Secretary of the State for Northern Ireland. Alistair Jack, Scottish Secretary. Simon Hart, Secretary of the State of Wales. Baroness Evans, Leader of Lords. Amanda Milling, Party Chairman and Minister without portfolio. That sounds promising. Without a portfolio, that sounds good. Jacob Rees-Mogg, Leader of the Commons. Mark Spencer, Chief Whip. Suella Braverman, Attorney General. And last not least, they saved the worst till last. Stephen Numpty McBarkley. I like to call him Stephen Skirt wearing Barkley, Chief Secretary of the Treasury. Stephen Barkley. What do you guys make of Stephen Barkley? Anyway, we've got the BAME. Black, Asian, and minority ethnic is a term widely used in the UK to describe people of non-white descent, as defined by the Institute of Race Relations. This is the second reshuffle for Mr Johnson, who became Prime Minister last July, after winning a Conservative leadership election. Big names to have left the cabinet on Thursday include Chancellor Sajid Javid, Attorney General Geoffrey Cox, and Business Secretary Andrew Leesden. I'm quite surprised of Chancellor Sajid Javid has left the cabinet. The makeup of the cabinet has also changed. The proportion of women in it has increased, but the actual number has fallen from 8 to 7 because some positions were enclosed. Do you know Amber Rudd? What's happened to Amber Rudd? I haven't heard much about her lately. She left. Boris Johnson's cabinet is just over a quarter women. Percentage of those attending cabinet are women. In Boris Johnson's cabinet is 27%. Theresa May's cabinet is 30%. David Cameron is 17%. Gordon Brown at 30%. Same as Theresa May. John Major at 8%. Margaret Thatcher at 5%. Anyway, private education. Members of the cabinet are more than 10 times more likely to have gone to private school than members of the public. Under Johnson's predecessor, Theresa May, 7% of the cabinet had not privately educated, whereas almost 70% of Mr Johnson's new cabinet have. Just over two-thirds of Boris Johnson's cabinet attended an independent school. Percentage of those attending cabinet were privately educated. Does it matter if you're privately educated or not? Because the private kids, you know what? Some kids at the private school have got more money than sense, and they're probably spending it on trips out, days out. Like not alcoholic binges, narcotic binges. I've seen it in many films. These really educated kids had all their education paid for, and they're spending money like no man's business, acting inappropriately. University background. According to the Sutton Trust Social Mobility Charity, every Prime Minister since 1937 who attended university was educated at Oxford, except for Gordon Brown. Half of Mr Johnson's cabinet went to Oxford or Cambridge universities. This compares with 20% of all Conservative MPs and 80% of Labour's MPs. Half of Boris Johnson's cabinet are Oxbridge graduates. A percentage of these attending cabinets who studied at Oxford or Cambridge. Sometimes, I've come from the school of, I like to call it the school of hard knocks because it's called the school of hard knocks because the area, the areas, it's like Beirut, the areas where I was brought up in. Some that, a lot of my friends were good, my best friends at school in prison, life behind bars because they brought up around the assumption of alcohol and narcotics throughout the family, relatives and whatnot, getting in the wrong circles, going into town acting like a complete monstrosity. I've always took the etiquette route. I was into football and I kept my head down and away from the monstrosity. But I've lived that life of fear, but everyone lives that life of fear, you know. To be fair, it's just how you tackle it. Sir Peter Lample, founder and chairman of Sutton Trust, said December's election led to the seismic shift of the political landscape and Conservative MPs now represent a more diverse range of constituencies than before. Yet in terms of educational background, the makeup of Johnson's cabinet is still over 60% from independent schools, he said. Today's finding underline how unevenly spread the opportunities are to enter the elites, and this is something Boris Johnson must address. Cabinet experience. Michael Gove is by far the most experienced of Mr Johnson's new top team. The ministers who have had 204 days of cabinet experience are the new faces appointed by the PM when he took power in July last year. I want to say something about Michael Gove. He probably doesn't want to be, you know, keep repeating it, but then reading throughout the cabinet news, out the politician news, did he have a bit of addiction in his previous, or is it, 'cause it's shown in Parliament, someone was addicted to some sort of narcotics, and I think it might have been Mark Gove. I'm not going to keep, drumming it into everyone's head to be critics against him, but there are a few problems with the politicians. Nigel Farage was an ex-alcoholic. I don't know if he still is, but everyone suffers with mental health. That's what I say. Everyone is hiding behind, you know, glass houses. Everyone's hiding behind glass house. It gets thrown out in the propaganda, and you know what they're up to inside the chamber. Is all I can say. Anyway, this is what I want to talk about ASAP. Hmm? Yeah, please. Is the trade war over? What a Biden presidency means for global trade. What global trade means now. What's happening to the global trade? The US election is over and people are dancing in streets. But what ask absolutely no one apart from the handful of trade nerds. And if you're reading this, that's you. So I hope you're reflecting soberly on your life choices which brought you to this place. We're all furloughed off work, or some of us might not have been working, anyway, because mental health problems, any kind of problems. There's opportunities out there still. You could be on PIP, but there's still opportunities for you to get work, come off universal credit. There's so many opportunities out there for you to still get off your backside and do something. I mean, I'm doing my radio every day. I'd like it to be my full-time job, but unfortunately, it's not going to pay the bills until I get a big um, financial support on my show. The only way I can get big financial support on my show is do some work. So I've done a business management course. There's many other courses you can do through the route I'm going, which I'm going to tell you in a minute. Our government has put a scheme where you're on so much, under, I think it's under 15,000 a year, you can get these courses for free to get you into a better financial position. And they can put you through LGV, HGV, they can put you through your HR course, um, business management. You want to do administration in office. All these courses you can get put through from the government through Sure Trust. It's also helping your mental wealth and your well-being, basically, because that's what your mental health lies. You've got no money, you're not going to go anywhere in life. Right? You're not going to make friends. You're not going to be able to go and do what you want, buy what you want, treat your family at Christmas. You need to get your head down in business. Time to focus. This lockdown is time to focus on a better you. Revamp you when you come back to normality. UK-US Free Trade Agreement. On a UK-US Free Trade Agreement (FTA), let's begin by restating that a triumphalist pronouncements over the last few years, and Donald Trump rapidly gifting the UK a generous FTA because he loves Boris Johnson. Brexit, or just out of his famous generosity of spirit, were nonsense. The US president is empowered to launch negotiations, but actually concluding them is done by a US trade representative exclusively on the basis of what can pass through Congress. And Congress is never a cheap date. Much have been made of Biden's Irish roots and how closely he and the Irish caucus in Congress are likely to watch the implication of Brexit on a Good Friday Agreement (GFA) on these issues. The Biden administration is most likely to take its cues from Dublin. If Ireland is screaming about the betrayal and bad faith, the US will mirror that concern. If the Taoiseach is more conciliatory of the US. It will probably mirror that too overall, unless the UK completely tears up the withdrawal agreement and thus forces Dublin to build a land border. The bigger barriers to UK-US FTA and the short term are elsewhere. For, for President Biden, particularly entering into the FTA negotiations with the UK carriers, as many risks as upsides, negotiations will inevitably get stuck on political sensitive issues around agriculture and food standards, with the US FTA no longer positioned by the Johnson administration as a holy grail justifying any and all the Brexit hardship and all the intense public scrutiny of trade issues in the UK. The concession the US can extract, it will likely fall short of US farmer expectations. Biden thus risks being bogged down in contentious negotiations with the Prime Minister his own party is less than fond of, unable to extract sufficient concessions on agriculture to win over rural district votes in Congress, and without sufficient gains in other parts of the arrangement to make a whipping operation successful. You can see why he is not prioritising it. The World Trading Organization, all signs suggest the Biden administration will have two guiding principles and the WTO in particular. That's what I want the WTO, and that is it. I'm not worried about the EU. I don't know. Biden's got nothing to do with the UK, so keep his party politics in the US. Simple as that. Ensuring it has the tools it needs to confront China, not being quite as big a dick about it. Confronting China. China is a ball game. The world's of contemporary US trade policy. Everything can be traced back to the central thesis that existing rules aren't impending Chinese state intervention in global markets, but are hampering US efforts to protect itself against it. The US views against Chinese state capitalism as not only commercially damaging to the US interests, but as fueling the rise of China as a technological and geostrategic competitor to the US. That's not changing anytime soon. The IRE of the US, with the WTO's appellate body, which are akin to the court system for the setting appeals on trade disputes. This stems primarily from the number of rulings against the US efforts to protect itself from what is argued were artificially cheap goods from abroad. That concern is going away. That's why we want the WTO more than anything, cheap goods from abroad. From a number of boring technical, historical, and political reasons, the rules are writing and simply more robust when it comes to limiting the types of action the US is likely to use than the complex, opaque, and at times indirect state capitalism of China. Given that changing on or modernizing the rules to address this requires Chinese consent, their concerns it isn't going away either. That doesn't mean nothing will change. Trump and his US representative, Robert Lighthizer, believe that legally binding international arbitration is inherently bad for US interests, so they can cut the appellate body to its knees. Biden is unlikely to support that approach. The odds of the reconstituted appellate body therefore go from snowball in hell to yeah, maybe eventually. Under certain circumstances, Biden won't be inherently opposed to the idea, but will need to see reforms that preclude it from unduly impending US efforts to confront China. That'll be a tough negotiation. For the UK, which is an upper middle power benefits from the predictable and rules based system, this is a step in the right direction, unlike the global behemoths of the US, EU, and China. UK cannot rely on the market power to arm twist concessions out and trading partners when there's a dispute. Predictable system where issues are decided on questions of law rather than power is to the UK's benefit. A friendlier superpower. Globalization is, in the UK, is pretty massive, really, especially with the WTO. I don't think we've got much to worry about. Really don't. In that same vein, the greater focus of Biden administration on engaging with allies and the global community in is a positive sign. If you look at the global globalization in the UK over the past few years, I think it's about 16 to 17 million. We're like, no, billion, sorry, 16 to 17 billion. That's how, we're like one of the, I think, six wealthiest countries in the whole world. So I don't know what the big problem is. UK has one of the most expansive and sophisticated diplomatic networks in the world. See, and it is at its strongest in the world of growing connotations, plurilaterals, and collaborative forums. Trump, who thinks such things dilute US power, was a liability in the regard, and the Biden administration avowed commitment should be an asset. For example, the UK cannot afford to re- re- re-engagement by the US in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, which the UK itself is hoping to join in coming years. US membership on trading bloc elevates it from considerably to hugely significant, ironically simultaneously, action to the TPP, which could offer the UK backdoor into many of the benefits it would otherwise require as a US FTA to secure. More broadly, US political shift away from the performative jerkdom could yield other benefits for global diplomacy. Biden is far less likely to block an appointment of the WTO Director General, has already signalled he wants the US back in Paris climate change agreement, and will probably revert to the standard US position of deep exploration with the United Nations rather than outright hostility to it. The US is also unlikely to keep under the barrage of the threats to which it subjected the international trading system during Trump's tenure. In addition, in blocking director general appointment and a break-in for the appellate body, the US has held the WTO's budget hostage, threatened to unilaterally raise all of its tariffs, said it will leave WTO agreement on government procurement and probably a number of other things. I'm just too numb to even recall anymore. The Biden administration may still throw its weight around, but the chaos should end. All of this to the UK's advantage. Britain is good at navigating intergovernmental organisations and multi-party diplomacy. It will be even better when it no longer has to craft increasingly elaborate ways to explain to partners that it opposes whatever gauche things the US just did, but not enough to actually say publicly. How you doing, ladies and gents? Still got a little bit to get through. For all the bluster, Farage, hugging and Scottish golf courses, Trump really didn't deliver for British trade policy. The thing he could have done was throw in a considerable weight behind the rapid FTA with the UK, which didn't demand the difficult agricultural requirements Britain who struggled with. But the transactional approach meant this was impossible. His departure, therefore, has a few downsides across the Atlantic. Biden is even less likely to pick fights with the Congress in order to secure a rapid trade agreement than Trump, provided to be, but the US deal appears to have slipped down the priority list at number 10 as well. At least it comes time to negotiate. Biden it was less likely to follow the chaos factor and hosted taking approaches Trump favoured. We can expect fewer ultimatums and more grinding technical work is good. Have you seen America's work? That is America's work, what America's meat that's pumped with. It's like a chemical pump with all these chemicals. I don't know what that in my stomach, all my children's in that for that matter. It's pumped with like chlorinated water. It's horrible. Biden's arrival should also be how I would have returned to the style of the trade diplomacy in the UK is more comfortable with, but will not change fundamental US interests. Confronting China and will remain as heart of US policy on trade, with all decisions viewed through a lens of how they impact that broader struggle, the UK, with its comparatively low economic dependence on China, a wide diplomatic network is better positioned than some to navigate to turbulent waters that confrontation will stir up, provided it can weather the more local Brexit storms of its making. Just want to say thank you for tuning, guys. If you'd like to subscribe, I really, really appreciate your time. COVID over know what COVID over the next 2 weeks. What's happening in the next 2 weeks as coming out of the lockdown. Next 2 weeks crucial for ending England's lockdown. All the shops are shut. All the shops are shut down. But the next 2 weeks are crucial. Are you behaving yourself right now? The next 2 weeks will be absolutely crucial if England's lockdown is to end as planned on 2nd December. A government scientific advisor has said. Professor Suzanne Michi said the public must resist breaking the rules in order to be in a position to spend festive period with loved ones. News of a potential vaccine would make no difference to the current wave but lead to a complacency, she added. The Prime Minister has said the current restrictions will expire next month. Professor Michi, a member of the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergency Stage, told BBC's Radio 4 Today programme it has too early to know what should replace the measures when they end. With the coming fortnight being the key, she said they're going to be a very, very challenging 2 weeks, partly because of the weather, partly because I think the promise of a vaccine may be making people feel complacent. But she said the data showed adherence to the lockdown rules and has been pretty steady since the summer. It comes as the UK recorded a further 26,860 COVID cases on Saturday, along with 462 deaths within 28 days of the positive test. Pubs, bars, and restaurants, as well as non-essential shops, have been forced to close during the 4-week lockdown in England. Boris Johnson has previously insisted the measures will end as a schedule, but Cabinet Office Ministers Michael Gove said more measures could last beyond 2nd December. Professor Michi said people had to get their resolve together and resist any urge to break the rules in order to maximise the chance of leaving lockdown. However, she said she had quite hopeful after tough measures in Wales and Northern Ireland brought transmission rates down. Wales finished the 17-day fire-break lockdown restrictions on Monday. Much of Northern Ireland's economy is placed under the tight measure of 16th October. Scotland introduced a 4T on the 22nd November after ending national curbs on hospitality industry. Areas of West Scotland have been warned they may have been replaced under the highest level of restrictions next week. It comes after the documents released by Sage on Friday and dated 4th November warned to return to the tiered system of coronavirus restrictions in England after lockdown ends. It could see infections rise again. On Friday, Sage said the R number, that the rate at which the virus spreads for the UK had fallen to 1 to 1.2, with experts believing it is already below 1 in some places. A value below 1 means the number of infections is falling. Thank you all for listening, ladies and gents. This is a short one as I've got my tea waiting for me. Thank you all ever so much for tuning in for our short cast. We'll be back full throttle tomorrow. Absolute populism on cast, but absolutely actually building my show on YouTube, getting more subscribers. You guys are really helping me get a support network. It's important that we get a support network. It's important that we all get come through and start. You will need to get an updates what's going on around in the global trust in the democracy. I'm giving you updates to the voting system, how it works, how to get involved. You engage with your local council, engage with the community, find out what's going on in the community, what needs supporting. Thank you all so much. It's beneficial to subscribe. Take care, one love, and speak soon.